You've tuned into The Mountain Gardener with your host, Ken Lain. Gardening, it can be challenging, but with these simple insider tips, you'll reap huge rewards. Now, let's tune into today's Mountain Gardener with Ken and Lisa. And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lain, here every week talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona, officially into autumn. Kind of nice. We're getting into, we can see October. It's right there. And so it's before us. This is one of the most important months of the year for gardening. And you wouldn't think that because, things are kind of overgrown. Flowers are just flopping over the containers. They're spilling over raised beds. The vegetable garden is just going, it's just tired. It's going, I can't produce anymore. The tomatoes are ginormous. The tomatillos are taking over. They're taller than you and I. The zucchinis are as big around as your hands across. It's time to start winding down, cleaning up, and then making sure that you feed everything in the yard, especially those things that are blooming not now, but in the spring. So you're setting the stage now for great fall color and even better spring blooms and spring production. And so there's some certain things that you need to do. And I thought I would share some of those fall tips. What are some things I'm doing that makes a difference? I mean, serious difference in the gardens. Now, first and foremost, this is really hard for you folks in the Midwest. You're going, oh, you've got 8 foot of topsoil. I mean, you've got 8 foot of nutritional substance, humic, and all these decades, centuries, millennia of soil enhancements, and you're gardening in that. You could throw this microphone out in the garden, it would start to grow. It's just too easy. Here at higher elevations of the mountains of Arizona, it's not that way. We've had a little bit of topsoil, millimeters, not feet. And what little was there, your contractor scraped off and gathered up and threw away, basically, to make room for your footers and your driveways and your fences and your patios. And it's just, some of you are gardening in dead soil, or there's no enrichment, there's no value, there's no nutrients there in your soil. You're going to need to replenish that more often here than you do in other parts of the country. This is serious stuff. I would say even more so than the desert. Our monsoonal pattern kind of picks up. We get all this rain. It just picks up what little bit of nutrients there, and it floats downstream and actually goes down to the deserts, down to the plateaus, down off of your property. You're going to need to replenish that more often here to have healthy plants, especially bigger trees, especially if you want rich, thick, full evergreens. If you want blooming anything, you're going to need to fertilize, to plant food that. And let me just define what that is. So I call it plant food, but some of you old timers call it manure, poop in a bag. And I'm not talking about poop. Yes, there's a place for that as you open up your gardens, your vegetable gardens, your flower beds. Yes, I would say top dress with a 2 to 3 inch layer of manures and let it percolate and settle until you're ready to plant next spring. But really what I'm talking about now is, how do I keep my sycamores healthy, big, thick? How do I keep my pine trees, natives, ponderosas, pinyon pines, to my decorative Scotch pine, Austrian pines, Bosnian pines, to my more formal looking spruce trees? Actually, spruce are native. You got Spruce Mountain right here. You could almost walk there from Prescott. Native firs are up there. And so you want to keep those nice and rich and full and thick. The way to do that is to fertilize them. That's also how you keep them healthy. There's a bark beetle or Ips beetle. Actually, there's several types of beetles that eat pine trees, that eat evergreens. Because we're on these huge pine forests or evergreen forest, there's all these bugs that have adapted to go after, and they like the taste of evergreens. They're burrowing into the tips of the Arizona cypress. They're burrowing into the bark of the pine trees, because that's where the nutrients, that's where the moisture, that's where the humidity, that's where life is. And so they've adapted to eating those. You really want to care for them, and you do that by fertilizing. Don't overdo it. And even the natives appreciate a good food at least once a year. And October, if you can fertilize before Halloween, before the end of the month, before the end of October, it is the most important feeding of the entire year. I cannot emphasize that enough. You really need to up your game when it comes to feeding your plants here. And can I just emphasize, for the love of gardening, do not use a 10-10-10 synthetic fertilizer. Stop using chemicals out in the yard. When you don't have a lot of topsoil, the plants will respond great to it, but you will vaporize your worms, mycorrhizal colonies, all the good stuff in the soil. They despise chemicals. They want an organic food. I'm going to try not to get on my soapbox. This is so important because the mountains, the way we are, the way our topsoil is, and how alkaline, and all the gardening that we have here. It is more important than other parts of the country to use organic plant foods. Now, I'm such a believer in it. I've created my own. I kind of like the science. What makes plants grow? What enhances the soil richness of your landscapes? There's an art to it. There's a science to it. And I like that science and that art. And so we've created an all-purpose plant food, a 744 all-purpose plant food. It's cottonseed meal and some bird guano and some sulfur iron, some things to it. And then we've got a completely organic, like it's just pelletized meals, like meat meal and feather meal and bone meal. It's pelletized for the vegetable and berry, grapes, fruit trees. We call it fruit and vegetable food. It's a 6447. So if you're eating plants, if you're harvesting plums, if you're having apples, you're bringing off your berries. I've got huge grape production this week. I don't know what to do with all the grapes. There's so many clusters. It's made for that kind of production. And then it's got 6%, 7446. Is that right? 6447. Sorry, 7% calcium. I get them all mixed up. Calcium is what brings out the flavor, the richness, the size of your edible plants, whether it's a tomato or an apple or a grape or a berry or pomegranate. It's made for that. And it's made for this elevation for us. It's pelletized. The science is all put together. Just spread it. Pray for rains and snows and irrigation that's going to come over the next seasons, and your plants will be set for an eruption of blossoms next spring. So the plants are using food this time of year over the next few months. It's going to use that food to form next spring's flower buds and leaf buds. That's why it's so important. If you want lilacs, forsythias, flowering quince, if you want beautiful, whether it's a native Oregon grape or mahonia, you need to fertilize now for that spring growth, for that spring blossom. If not, the flowers will be small, emaciated, if it blooms at all. And so they should be striking. They'd be full. There's so many flowers you can't see the foliage. That's the way a spring shrub should be. Your spring blooming thing should be. And so we created the 744 all-purpose food. Cottonseed meal makes things more acidic. It's also what makes flowers bigger and bolder. Of course, bird guano. There's nothing better than bird poop in a bag. Pelletize, so it's easy to spread. You add a little bit of iron and sulfur because we know we're trying to counteract our water, which is a serious issue. If you're new to the area, I got a whole class on just gardening for newcomers, how to deal with the water, the sun, the wind, the lack of soil, of actual dirt. Gardening, some of you have rocks and clay and caliche, but you don't have soil to garden in. So I go over class on that. But the main thing it starts with, just fertilize. Don't use water solubles now. You need a granulated, slow release organic food. And I would suggest it's worth making a trip, come to Waters, come over the hill. It's worth the trip from Sedona, Cottonwood. Just come down and get a bag or 2 or 3 or 5 of 744 all-purpose plant food. If you just generic evergreens or blooming lilacs or blooming crepe myrtles or rose of Sharon's, whatever it is. And then if you're into edible organic gardening, you want to control that produce yourself, the 6447 all kind of tomato and vegetable fruiting food is your go-to. Can't emphasize that enough.
Water's October companion plants that grow well together are blaze maple, burning bush, spicy mums, and glamour kale.
Few flowers are more elegant in fall than Water's Glamour Kale.
The autumn colors are perfect for containers, beds, and borders.
And it's so easy to grow.
This unique Prescott selection is an award winner for cold hardiness, intense red, purple flowers in a frilly package.
You'll find bright fall flowers here at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. For a more fruitful garden, increase success in the landscape that just feels better, then tune in daily to the Mountain Gardener podcast. Subscribe through your favorite podcast streamer or visit watersgardencenter.com. Better yet, visit me directly right here at Waters Garden Center. Thanks for tuning in.